Welcome, everybody. My name is Lauren Lichterman. I'm with the Green Sports Alliance, and we are presenting to you today a webinar, actually the first official webinar in our Collegiate series that is brand new with our brand new Collegiate membership tiers that we've rolled out just a few weeks ago. We are talking about student athlete engagement today. We have four wonderful speakers. Excited to let them introduce themselves in a moment, but a little bit of the housekeeping before we get started. Bradley Vogel on the Green Sports Alliance team is here as well on that like back-end support side. That's Brad. If you've got any questions that come up as we are going through this conversation, please throw them in the chat. If anyone else has a similar question or supports that question, feel free to throw some emojis on it, give a thumbs up. We'll have time for asking questions at the end, and we'll try and gauge which questions that we can respond to based on where the most interest is. I personally am happy to stay on a little bit after time if anyone has follow-up questions. So just FYI, if we don't get through all of them, Brad and I are also available whenever for you guys if you want to keep the conversation going. But we will, make sure we get everybody out of here on time. There was one other little housekeeping thing that it's not coming to mind right now. So until I remember it, we will go ahead and get started and let each of our panelists introduce themselves. And we will start with Lou Blaustein.
Well, first of all, thank you so much, Lauren, for inviting me and also my fellow panelists. And thanks everybody for coming. And I really am glad that collegiate student athlete engagement on climate, on the environment, on sustainability has risen to this point where we have this as a topic. I think it's meeting the moment. And so just a little bit about me. I write Green Sports Blog, which hopefully many of you have read. And in 2020, launched EcoAthletes as a nonprofit to inspire and coach athletes to lead climate action. I felt that the athletes who are the most influential humans on the planet per peer-reviewed scientific data, it's not just me saying that, were on the sidelines largely on climate and the environment, whereas they've led on a myriad of issues going back many decades, from civil rights to women's rights, et cetera, et cetera. And we interviewed a bunch of athletes and found that they were environmentally minded, but they found climate to be too sciencey, too political, or that they were being branded a hypocrite for talking about it with their carbon footprints being so high because they fly a lot. So that was the genesis of EcoAthletes, and now we have 140 champions all over the world who we help move from climate curious to climate leader. For this purpose, for the topic we're talking about today, the fastest growing and the largest cohort of EcoAthletes champions are now are collegiate students, NCAA student athletes. We have 30 as of today who are currently in school. And if you widen the lens out to 22, 23 classes, we're well over 40. And just in the really year and a half since our emphasis on college student athletes has come about, we've done a couple of really important things. One, we had the first NIL green-themed NIL program, which we instituted with 5 Rutgers student athletes who were EcoAthletes champions, and the Rutgers NIL collective, which is called Knights of the Raritan. And we'll talk about that later. And we see that as being a much bigger thing going forward, and that the Rutgers experience can be a template for schools around the country. And then, what makes student athletes unique? They are passionate, they are organized, they are talented, and they are committed. And that's just to their sport. and their school. And those who are interested in climate, well, they bring those capabilities and qualities to the mix. So we took that, and they're competitive. And we took that and we created a game called the Collegiate Cup, which was a 3-month competition in partnership with a company called Climate Games, which basically encouraged our champions on 13 campuses, starting from January to Earth Day this year, to get their friends, their family, their dentist, their barber to sign up for the Clemson, to sign up for Pitt, to sign up for Rutgers, and then to exercise. And their exercise, translated from their Apple Watch or their phone or whatever, would go into this app through Climate Games and would be recorded, and exercise would be translated into environmental currency, which would take carbon out of the atmosphere. Increase exercise, more carbon removal. And it was a big hit. Clemson won it. And we'll talk more about that. And so we have more, and Collegiate Cup 2 is going to be launching in March of 2024. So that's just a little bit about me.
Couldn't find my mute button for a second. Thank you, Lou. That's wonderful. I'm really excited to get into the details of those accomplishments. But more in a minute after we get Elena and Brandon and Cecil introduced. So I know Elena and Brandon, you'll have some slides. So tell me just like when to click, and I will hopefully get the right pictures up for you.
Awesome. Thank you, Lauren. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. My name is Elena. I'm a senior on the field hockey team here at Duke, accompanied by Brandon here on the football team. And at Duke, we are part of leading our 1-year-old officially student athletics sustainability group. We call ourselves DSAG. And we've gone on a cool adventure just in the last 2 semesters to bring about change and connect our athletes and our athletic administration for simple to big sustainability initiatives. And you can see here on the slide, this all was sort of accumulated in the summer where Duke and other organizations are starting to connect their staff and their athletes with different sorts of conferences. We were lucky enough to go to Green Sports Alliance over the summer, and our administration attended the ACC Sports Sustainability Conference, where we're able to learn what all other schools do it in the same regard.
Real quick, if Brandon wants to say hi, and then I'll flip to the next slide.
Hey guys, Brandon Hirsch here, senior on the Duke football team, and yeah, also a member of DSAG. Worked really close with Elena on a lot of these projects, but Lauren, feel free to jump ahead.
All right.
So the first kind of thing I want to talk about a little bit, just to kind of give you guys an overarching of the what and the types of things that we did. To really get the ball rolling, we really started with a simple project, and it was a shoe drive, which you can see a couple photos here. Basically, this was just to show that athletes care, to kind of show our athletic department that we were serious about sustainability, and that there was a need. So pictured here are athletes from all different teams, along with Matt Hess, who's from our Duke University operations team. And you know, as athletes, we get lots of gear, so we just thought that this would be a really cool low-hanging fruit to kind of show, you know, that we are interested. You can click forward here.
Now here's a little clip from what we started. At Duke, we have a lot of like themed games for different causes. So we started the first ever green themed games, and at field hockey, we had a Bleed Blue Live Green game where we collected donations for the Boys and Girls Club of Durham, and we were able to hand them off after our game. And then we also like engaged our fans with composting that athletics supported financially at the end of our tailgates, where all of our fans and parents were learning about the proper ways of waste sorting, which was really fun. And then this all accumulated into the trend of continued green games moving forward. So you can move ahead, Lauren, to find the next.
Elena, do you want to take this one, or?
So yeah, we also like included a fun little halftime game, like trying to just spark education. And we had our fans, you can see a little girl here on the left, doing competition and playing field hockey based on like which items would be sorted where. And then Brandon can take it to start explaining how our football game went.
Yeah, so kind of like I was saying before, we started with some low-hanging fruit with the shoe drive and then rolled that into a bit of a pilot program with field hockey. And on the right, what you can see that photo is a way station in our tower for our football stadium, where we hosted the first ever climate commitment game at Duke. So we kind of took kind of the more lower level grassroots initiative that we started with the field hockey game, and then implemented it into a larger scale 40,000 person football stadium event. And that photo there is two of our waste goalies from Lindsay Batchelor, who's on this call's team at Sustainable Duke, the Green Devils, and they were educating fans in the tower a little bit about where to put their waste. You can. So yeah, so here's just a few more pictures from the football game. On the field there are me and some of the Green Devils getting honored during the game. And we have plans for the future to kind of improve where we go and the levels at which of sustainability we want to achieve. But we really just started with tackling waste. But this kind of just shows how you can start something as little as a shoe drive to attack some of the low-hanging fruit and kind of evolve it into something so much bigger with a field hockey game and then a football game.
All right. Thanks, you guys. Really excited to hear about those things. I'm going to stop sharing for a second and we can just all see each other while Cecil introduces himself and tells us a little bit about what's happening at Ohio State.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining the call today, and thanks for having us, Lauren and Brendan. I'm sorry, not Brendan, Bradley, sorry. For some reason, I had Brendan in mind. I am Cecil Okotah, and I serve as the Environmental Sustainability Specialist for the Department of Athletics and Business Advancement here at Ohio State. And recognized as a leader in really providing and designing sustainable solutions. Ohio State in 2015 developed a set of overarching sustainability goals that would kind of shape the university going forward. And these goals kind of range from teaching and learning, outreach and engagement. And basically what my job really focuses on is the resource stewardship, which looks at energy efficiency, water resource conservation, zero waste, and then alternative transportations procurement. So zero waste. Here at Ohio State, we've really strived to really be zero waste as much as possible, with our commitments kind of going back to the early days in 2004 when we started tracking waste data here at Ohio State. And in 2007, we started really tracking our recycling numbers at the Ohio Stadium. And not until 2011 did we really initiate our zero waste program at the stadium. And at the time, Ohio State University and the stadium was one of the largest facilities in the country to really strive for a zero waste status. And our first zero waste achievement came during the 2012 season football game against Purdue, where we diverted over 94% of our waste. And since then, it's been a consistent achievement with some ups and downs due to COVID and other events. I also serve as the advisor for our student athlete group, LEAFS, which is Leadership of Environmental Athletes for Sustainability. This was established prior to COVID back in 2020. And with COVID, that really became inactive. And we've really worked together to really establish this organization back up. And what really happens within LEAVES is it is a platform which provides student athletes the opportunity that Brendan and Elena were talking about to really showcase their skill set and also really create some long-lasting solutions within their teams. And in turn, all these skill sets they build will help them in future endeavors and really position them in a competitive manner when they go into the job markets. So that's really a little bit about LEAVES, and tracking back to my role. So I work with our building managers to really align our operations to the university sustainability goals. and basically making sure that we are being efficient in how we operate our buildings. We are being zero waste with our large events, and really providing alternative transportations for our guests as they make their way to campus on game days.
Big time props to Cecil and everything that you've accomplished operationally and with the Leafs organization. Those of you who don't know my past life, I was at a competing university to Ohio State. I was at the University of Texas, and our zero waste program was always trying to beat Ohio State. It's really, really impressive what they're able to accomplish. So congrats on that. To get into some of our questions, it's really great to hear the what has been accomplished by our panelists, but we really want to spend the time today talking about how were they able to do that. I know we've got kind of a mixed bag of attendees listening into this conversation, and you may be on the university side, knowing that you've got some student athletes involved, but you're not quite sure what to do with athletics, or you're in athletics and you know that there've got to be student athletes out there, but you're not quite sure how to find them or how to get them involved. Campus side might have that same sentiment. You may have different levels of support, right? So maybe you're at a, everyone is tapped out at, we're all have so many things going on. So what are those resources out there to help make things happen if you're kind of like, I don't even know where to start? And so that's where we want to get into the nitty gritty today. And like I said at the beginning, if you've got any questions that come up as we're talking, please throw them in the chat. If someone else is interested in that same question, throw an emoji up, throw a thumbs up or something with it. And we'll try and get to those questions at the end. And if not, we'll find another time to address them for sure. But I want to start it off kind of going in reverse and kick it to Cecil to talk a little bit more about how Leafs got started. And I know you mentioned kind of what the pandemic did to that, but we all experience you've only got student athletes for a short amount of time. So what happens when student athletes graduate? And maybe we can talk through kind of what you're experiencing with the Leafs organization right now, again, how it got started and where you are and where you're trying to go.
Sure. So Leafs got started back in 2020 when Cassidy Jennings, a former student athlete on the rowing team, was a student here at Ohio State. And during her time, she was really finding it difficult to really find other resources outside of her busy schedule. And she was really passionate about the environment, but did not have that time commitment to go actually find those resources because of practice, personal life, and other things in between. So when she graduated and had a position within our department, she decided to create this platform to enable and empower student athletes going through the same problems as she had actually gone through as a student, to really find that space where they can actually connect and really create meaningful solutions within the department and outside of the department. And as I had mentioned, with COVID, everything kind of fell apart, and we started really organizing back up last semester. And we've finally been able to really get a group together, about 15 of them passionate about the environment and how to really affect change within our department.
Sorry, I got a logistical text question while we were talking. Real quick, did I just try to change it to Spotlight? Did that Spotlight for everybody or just for me?
Just for you.
Okay, all right. You learn new things every day. So if you're interested in seeing this person speaking, it's an individual thing that you can click to Spotlight, or to, instead of doing the gallery view, to do the speaker view, if that helps anyone. So thank you for that information on the kind of the background. I'm curious if Elena and Brandon have any insights on how to get student athletes interested, or finding those resources, and how to maintain that after graduation. I know there've been some other universities who are on this call that had student athletes that once they graduated, the organization or the program kind of died out because of that lack of interest. So how do we get some staying power to this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I can start off, and Brandon, feel free to fill in afterwards. So the way we got it started was Honestly, by joining the ACC Sustainability Athletes Group, I realized what was going on at UVA with Sadie Rodriguez and other things that I realized like the visions I had weren't that crazy and like other athletes in sports were doing it. So like we should go for it. So we sent out just we put flyers over campus, sent out an email to every athlete saying like, hey, like if you're passionate about doing these sorts of projects, joining this group, like come to this intro meeting. So I had this Excel sheet of everyone's responses to like why they care about this stuff and why they want to do it. And it really like sort of excited me, kicked us all into action to start meeting. And then from there, we just decided, okay, here's all our ideas. What do we want to start with? And then moving forward. Hardest part is definitely kind of keeping it as a coercive like group. We haven't really had group meetings since that first one a year ago and have sort of intermittently kept in touch with people all individually, which is much more work on like us being the leaders and our efforts to try to make it last longer is establishing more of an official internship role that sort of like runs the work that we're doing that Brandon and I are both going to be moving forward with in the spring under like our sustainability department and athletics department so that we can coach people to continue to fill this position to always like be working with our admin and be responsible for trying to pull like all the athletes together as a group.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, I saw Lou mentioned it in the chat, which is great. I was going to comment on that. I think SAC is a really great avenue to tap into because a lot of your student athletes that are on it are already interested in being involved, period. And it's just a great way of spreading information to the greater teams. So, for us, we were able to get it recognized by the athletic department as a group, that has a window of opportunity to speak at SAC meetings and let people know that's going on. So yeah, I just want to echo that. And then also Elena's point about, some of the long-term difficulties, not all places can set up an internship like Duke, but that really was key and is going to be key for us continuing it and finding other students that can fill those roles in the future. So.
Yeah. So a couple quick questions on that internship. Is it, I guess, who kind of manages the position? How do you know what to do? Because I know that comes up in athletics and probably on the campus side sometimes with who is one, I guess, is it a paid internship? If it's a paid internship, who's paying for it? And yeah, how do you know what to do? What is your day-to-day like? What is that management like? And maybe that's something that others on this call might be able to work into their system, because I do think that'll have a lot of staying power, right? Like that's a lot of really good professional development, good resume builder.
Well, yeah, I can kind of start and maybe you can piggyback off this. So this is going to be the first time our athletic department and Sustainable Duke has kind of come together to work on this, and we're still working out the details. It's starting up in the spring, but they were both departments are willing to kind of do this and help us out because they saw student athletes that cared. So it was kind of like a set sail and then build the ship kind of moment. So we're still working on how to how all of those details are going to come together. But the first step was like, two athletes who really want this, and then a supportive athletic department that we were able to bring together with Sustainable Duke and our university office. So the mechanisms of exactly how it's going to look like are kind of TBD for us. But the first step was just getting everybody in communication to come to the table and just figure out whose resources we're going to use.
And the only other thing I'll add to that is that for the last year, we've been doing this all just sort of like out of passion, out of interest, but it can operate the same way that like, if we were to explain what we were doing, we'd say we're like leading a student group, or we could basically like felt like we were working as interns under our department, but didn't need necessarily like official working papers or to get paid to be doing this. So like just getting the type of work experience we did was evolving in the same way, like without an official role and simply just by running a student group organization, basically like a club, can be a similar type of thing that athletes can look to start, or just simply being like a member of SAC. And that's sort of like the projects you do through SAC. All of those are ways that I feel like what Brandon and I have been doing could be defined as we haven't even actually moved into the like an official internship thing yet.
Yeah. Great info in there. I believe Lou put it in the chat, but SAC stands for Student Athlete Advisory Council, and every NCAA athletic department has one. I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's representation from all of the different teams come together and meet regularly to discuss what may be happening on your campus. It's great that you've got a sustainable athletics branch of SAC. I know some other universities have that, some do not. Leafs, I think, is a a recognized student organization at Ohio State, correct? And so it
Yeah,
might fall
so
under that.
yeah, so little bit about that. So this year we actually worked into really establishing our presence on campus and really formally registering the organization with Ohio State's Office of Student Life. So yes, that's one of the recognized organizations on campus.
Fantastic. And so most SAC like management or advisor goes through a student services department. Is not necessarily through facilities and events, where a lot of the campus side try and work to pursue sustainability initiatives, since so many have to do with building operations and events. But that may be another avenue of people to reach out to, is look in student services and see who might be that SAC advisor, to then be able to present the fact that sustainability exists on your campus, and see if there's any student athletes who are interested in participating. One thing that Brandon mentioned was talking about resources. So I want to kick it to Lou, who is a resource for student athletes, and for staff who are interested in trying to, create student athlete engagement, sustainability opportunities. So kind of open-ended, Lou, of like, what are some best practices that you have seen? And yeah, I'm just gonna leave it there. What are best practices you've seen?
Well, I would say better practices, because this is really new. And so, and I also want to commend, and I put in the chat that Elena and Brandon are EcoAthletes champions, and have been really among the leaders in our student group in terms of doing stuff. And I commend them, and I also commend just Deja Davis, who's the third Duke EcoAthletes champion. I want to mention her. So, I think what I've learned is that sustainability and athletics departments don't often talk to each other or have connections to each other. And that, once you get that to change, I'm not going to be all kumbaya with you and say, oh my gosh, everything's going to be great. However, once you get that going, then possibilities abound. And so EcoAthletes as an organization, in our student athlete, college sports initiatives for 2024 and beyond, one of the first things we want to do when we talk to student athletes about being champions going forward is, do you know anybody at sustainability? Also, to talk to the administrators at the SAC, who are employees of the university, of the athletics department. Do you have connections in sustainability? And by one way or another, we're going to get connections to sustainability. And then what we're going to do with a champion in tow is to start that conversation happening, if it isn't happening yet. And I know Lindsay Batchelor at Duke could certainly speak to this, where it is happening, but in a lot of places it isn't. So that's one thing, that we want to hasten that conversation, or those conversations, so that then we can, one thing would be an internship that sits at that intersection. So that's one thing, just to kind of follow up on what Elena and Brandon were talking about. In terms of other, in terms of things that are working, I can only speak from the EcoAthletes perspective. And what is working, the Collegiate Cup was successful in year one because the champions got into it, and because they're competitive, and Elena did an incredible job in that for Duke, creating a Duke-Stanford combined team, which was very creative. The NIL piece we mentioned, Another thing what we've been doing with our champions who are NCAA college students is providing them with mentorship, which is especially if they want to go in the green sports or the green careers space after their athletic careers are over. We provide them with coaching. We also provide them with networking and contacts. And we also, so two of our champions have gotten internships in this last year, and two who have graduated have gotten jobs. One in the green sports space, and one in the green space, not in sports. And
I think one of them's on this call.
I have a feeling that would be Riley Barr,
Yeah.
the former Florida State runner, who now is working at Blue Strike Environmental, which, among other things, helps to green sports events.
Love this full circle.
Hey, Riley. And in fact, I think I met Riley and Elena on the same day on the same Zoom call, if memory serves.
Yes, you
Well,
did.
that was incredible. I also do want to mention, not here, but Nikita Uberoy, who played tennis at Brown and then professionally. Really a story worth mentioning. This is for athletes who go pro and then need to get a job after that, and their pro sports career is not looked at as like having a job. And so we helped her kind of, show all these great things that she was able to do as a pro athlete, what that would make her a good employee in the world beyond sports. And so that's another thing that we do. I don't know if I answered your question.
You did. That was wonderful. Because there are so many different ways, going back from what you were talked about at first, that gap between athletics and campus, we've all felt it. And the way to bridge the gap is going to be a multi-prong approach. So the work that you're doing is really great, trying to bring them together. The Green Sports Alliance is working on that, trying to build networks together and introduce people to each other and showcase how well it works when you do collaborate with all of the knowledge that you have available to you on campus. And I want to kick it to Cecil to talk a little bit more about that, as your role is a dual report and you've got the student athlete piece. So again, kind of open-ended. Can you talk about how you're able to bridge that gap? Yeah. And what's been going on with that?
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for the question. I think it's a wonderful opportunity to really be able to be housed within athletics, because most of the my counterparts I've actually talked to in the past have always raised concerns about those gaps and how difficult it is to really enact change within athletics when you are coming from the outside. Even though it might be the same university, you are viewed as an external department, an external entity, and sometimes it makes collaborations a lot difficult compared to when you are housed within athletics and do have that relationship with staff within your department, as well as your students, athletes. So it makes it a lot easier to really get things going, but not necessarily an easy task, because you still have your roadblocks within the operations and how to really navigate that. And like you mentioned, I have a dual reporting role. I do report to athletics within my role, and also report to our sustainability office, the campus sustainability office. And that really bridges the gap between what's happening on campus and how we can replicate that same initiative within our department, or vice versa. And we feel the unique sense of this partnership as one person representing these two different entities. One of the things I would probably mention has been a success over the course of my time here is our partnership with campus to really expand our composting initiatives within our department. So back, I believe, prior to 2022, we only had about 2 or 3 composting sites here within the department, but then has kind of grown tremendously with that external collaboration with the sustainability group. We currently have composting at our offsite locations, as well as multiple event spaces that we operate from. What other thing?
It was great.
Sure, I'm not sure if that answered, but then in reality, having this position sit within athletics is a I would say an advantage in a way, because you have that dedicated resource for students, for staff members, and yeah, staff can rely on you. They see you every day in meetings and able to really relate to you in a personal way, compared to having an external person off-site, not really tied into any of the sports or facilities, kind of make those calls. Because I actually work within athletics, I understand our challenges and be able to really address those challenges, getting those resources from our broader sustainability office.
Wonderful. So that topic of bridging that gap more and like specifically how are you positioning this, I know is really compelling to a lot of the staff side from both campus and athletics of how to make this happen. So you will see future webinars from Green Sports Alliance addressing that specific topic from like an organizational structure standpoint. Kicking it back to Elena and Brandon, could you expand a little bit more on how did you find out about the ACC student athlete sustainability group? Like, how did you find Lindsay? How did you find Lou? Because I want to be able to tie it back to those representatives in this webinar who are from the campus side. Like, how would they have gotten to you? And obviously Duke is its own campus, different from other campuses, but what strategies would work if they're trying to, you mentioned finding other student athletes. Elena, you put up all these flyers, but how would they have gotten to you first?
I think that's a great question. I mean, it's exciting to think that on other campuses, it's the reverse that needs to happen because it was us trying to find administration that would help. But I found out about the ACC student athlete group, which like we don't even meet that frequently anymore, but we had, and it was just sent to SAC. So it was sent to all SACs saying like, hey, do you have any athletes who want to join this? And I wasn't even in SAC, but my best friend is the president of SAC. And she's like, hey, oh my God, you want to do this? And I was like, yes, I'd love to be a Duke rep. So basically the more that athletes can get connected, I think honestly, almost athletes recognizing that other athletes, other schools want to do it can help them meet administration, because like I wouldn't have gone to mine without recognizing how other people do it. And then through the little group of athletes, I just basically became really close with the like sustainability leader athlete, Sadie Rodriguez at UVA. And then she was like, oh my God, you haven't met Lou yet. Like you need to become an eco athlete. So then since becoming an eco athlete, I've like encouraged other people to do so, like Brandon and Deja, and then we'll have people doing it follow. But by meeting eco athletes, I met more athletes that like weren't involved in their campus side, but were in like the more like public professional facing side through eco athletes. And I've been able to connect with like organizations in the professional world that are like advancing their green sports activities. And like Brandon and I have gone on calls with them to figure out, okay, how can we run the best games? Like, how can we learn how to compost? Like, how do we do with a partnership and all these types of things? So those are where both of those assets have sort of helped us like connect with others that led to like more outreach with our administration. But in terms of like administration finding people specifically, I think just putting out words of opportunity. I would definitely try to connect with SAC if you're on like the non-athletic side or the athletic side, and just saying like that there's an opening for a meeting, or if there's a specific project that the administration wants to run, putting out a call in need for like athletic volunteers. And then you can find out which athletes actually care about this. Like for us, we were planning it a lot with our administration, and they, because like our athletes voice their opinion, they were very, very motivated on the athletic side to begin helping us, which I didn't realize how powerful it was, but simply just like a call with one of our athletic directors about like that athletes cared about this. We would put in all the work as much as we could, led to them like mobilizing as many resources as they could to do something simple like the shoe drive, and now moving forward. So any other ways that you can just put out certain opportunities or athletes might think they can get something out of it, which wasn't what we all were pursuing in our case, but something like an internship or an opportunity to go to a conference, I think are good ways to try to draw the most interested athletes.
Brandon, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, I think she covered a lot of it. And I think the nature of student athletes in their schedule is a lot of student athletes aren't actively seeking things unless they're kind of thrown on their desk and in front of them. And SAC is a great avenue for people to just see things and see opportunities. Like Elena was saying, for us, it was the other way. We kind of had to go to athletics and go to admin to kind of get these opportunities out there. But if you're at a university where there's things already happening, using SAC and different ways to get them in front of different teams or different groups, or leveraging whichever resources you might have in terms of people, I think you'll see athletes coming out of the woodworks if it's kind of put on their desk, through SAC or through some sort of other connections on teams. And again, I'm sure like most sustainability communities, like the student athlete community is very small. And I think it just takes 1 or 2 student athletes to get the ball rolling, to get some of their friends to be involved and, to bounce between teams. I know that's how that worked at Duke. It just took us 2 to kind of get the ball rolling, and a few others that were already interested.
Feeling of empowerment. Yeah. So, cause my glass half full attitude is I feel like there are Elena and Brandon's and Riley's on every campus. It's just a matter of either encouraging them to go find that and like take that initiative and go Google search. And maybe a one way to attack that is more of a PR campaign or more storytelling related to like Interloo and EcoAthletes explaining, here's the power of your voice. Here's what you can accomplish. Here is a community for you. Is kind of what I'm hearing there. Cause I do feel like they've got to exist everywhere. Like that generation is primed for this. It's just a matter, like you're saying, of get that information right in front of them. And actually real quick, can you guys, would you mind if this is not too like intrusive? Could you give a little rundown of like your day? Like, when do you wake up? What does your day look like? So maybe that gives a frame of reference to the audience of like, we all know you're busy, but like when you say busy, what does that mean? Because it's bonkers schedule, what y'all schedules are.
I can start because
Yeah.
Brandon's on the football side is a little probably more interesting and crazy. We would have practice during in season 8:30 to 11, occasionally have lift right after that, and sometimes not. Typically have to run right to a class from there. Probably another like 2.5-hour class in the middle. My classes tend to be like wrapped up around 6 or 7. We all go to dinner at like our athlete dining hall called Training Table, which is another great plug for sort of connecting student athletes, or putting flyers or signs would be at places like that. And then I would get into my schoolwork, hang out with my classmates or other friends, and my sustainability work would come with like throughout meetings in the day with either like our athletic director or Lindsay and Jason. So like anything in later afternoon or after I finish my homework that's like immediately due. The sustainability stuff always sort of like comes first on my plate, I guess. And I could be doing that from normal hours to any hours in the night, depending on like what other thing we're trying to get done. But that's about how I operate, which isn't, I don't know how common it is, but I'll let Brandon share.
Yeah, no, I definitely echo a lot of the same kind of scheduling issues and everything she said. But yeah, I think with student athletes, like it's very structured, and I think it's important to create these like bite-sized windows of opportunities at many different times to just at least get people's foot in the door. And for me, that's kind of how it started rolling. And I don't want to run you through everything, but typically for football, we're a morning practice team, so we're up as early as 5:30 and we don't leave until about noon. And then, the guys who are on scholarship and playing a lot will be back in the building at different times to either get an extra lift or nutrition or whatever they have to do. We also have our training table. So it's pretty chaotic. And then you're traveling. Most teams go into a hotel the night before on a Friday night before their game. Their whole Saturday is a wash. So it's hard, but I think for me, getting my foot in the door with just a few meetings and a few things here or there kind of just made it much easier. And then from there, I was able to just fit into my schedule with classes and all that, like anything else. I think if it's important to you, you can fit in a time slot for anything. But, at Duke, we've been particularly lucky, especially with Jason and Lindsay on the sustainability side. They've been really just open to being flexible with us or taking notes or sending us an email to fill us in. So if we're not necessarily there, we're still able to get the information and kind of help in whatever way we can. But again, the good side of student athletes is, their schedule is very firm and set. So you can know what the windows are that they have, and can kind of work around those.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Can I
Thanks
jump
for
in real
letting us
quick?
intrude on your schedules. Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Just going back to Elena and Brennan's earlier point about how to get resources or how to really connect with staff. What I've actually done here at Ohio State is really work with most of our admin staff on these individual teams, our building managers, as well as our Student Athlete Support Services Office, because it's basically the SAC of other schools. And what I usually do is with every opportunity that really comes my way, these are the people I usually reach out to, since they usually interface with students a lot and see them on a daily basis. So that's one avenue where student athletes can get these resources, as well as your nutrition team. So I'm always having conversations with our nutrition team. And one of the ways I really started Leafs, or kind of reestablished Leafs presence, was had a conversation with our nutrition team, and they actually pointed out a student who was really passionate about the environment and how to really make a difference. And I was able to reach out to that student, and then he was able to connect me with other students who were also interested. So these are some of the simple ways you can really get connected with student athletes within your schools, as well as we are quite fortunate here at Ohio State in that we do have the Eugene D. Smith Leadership Institute. And in this institute, they provide resources, internship experiences for students. It is a 200-hour internship time. It's flexible during the summer off season for most students. And what we do, or what they do in that office, is pair student athletes with specific companies that have actually shown interest in student athletes who wants to do specific opportunities. Excuse me. Personally, I had a student intern this past summer who was on the women's basketball team. And this really conversation started from I reached out to one of our admin team on the women's basketball team and said, hey, these are the resources I have available. If you know any students interested in one of them, just reach out. And we were able to connect with that student, and she was able to serve on the sustainability internship role for the summer. So these are some of the ways you can really engage with your students, and how students can also really engage with staff.
I did just want to add to Cecil's point. I think that's really true. And in the athletics world too, there are very targeted and key people that we see all the time and constantly. So, although it may be hard to get to those people, once you do, I see Matt Hess from our operations team almost every day. So just in passing, those conversations happen. It might have been hard for me to get to him, but once we were able to connect Sustainable Duke with Matt Hess and the types of people and that I'm seeing on a regular basis, because our schedules are so regular, it helps. It makes it hard to reach those people, but once you do, we're seeing them over and over again. So.
Yeah. Love all that. We've got just a few minutes left. If anyone's got any questions they want to throw in the chat, I know I still have questions and things, but I know Justin, you threw one in. Are you feeling good that we gave you some semblance of an answer? Do you want to? We can extrapolate on that further on how to find the athletes. But I'll go ahead, Justin. Yeah, calling you out.
That's helpful. I'm just Googling around trying to find out who I would even contact at U of L for our SAC. I guess is there a staff advisor within athletics for the whole group? Is that how that works? Yeah, okay. I just got to figure out who that is.
So their title might not say specifically SAC advisor, but I would think that it might be like a team with student athlete engagement, or if there's an administrative assistant, administrative associate within student athlete services, that may be the person to ask. And it looks like Lou also had his hand up.
Yeah. Also, EcoAthletes is happy to speak to SACs at schools where we have champions, and we've done so in person at Rutgers, which is easy since I live in New Jersey. However, we are also going to be doing virtual appearances. And so if you're interested in that, and we would be happy to do so at schools where we don't yet have champions, because I think if we speak to the SAC, we will find some people who will be interested in at least hearing about it. Another thing that we are going to be doing and we're working on now, hopefully we'll be ready for the start of the the January semester or sometime not too long after that, is basically a templatized what we're calling greening the. So greening the Blue Devils, greening the Scarlet Knights, and where EcoAthletes can offer a series of services, from NIL to green sponsorship to program development, et cetera, that either sustainability folks or athletics folks or both can engage with, and then we can then start to make something happen.
Yeah. I think that'll be a really, really helpful resource. And I know Brad just kicked a link in the chat to the new collegiate membership offerings that we've got at the Green Sports Alliance, but that also will link to a bunch of the resources we're putting out that are right now more like initiative focused, but we are also working on this kind of strategic organizational approach and how to create that internal dialogue and be working with each other. I know we've only got a few minutes left, but I guess I just want to do the call out, and Lou, I'll get you in just a second, of it. From all of this great conversation, it seems like if you've got like one shot at making an ask or getting to the right person, finding something that is as bite-sized as possible is maybe a good way to start. Like think of what you're trying to accomplish and think of the smallest, most granular way that someone could be incorporated into it. And it sounds like with maybe a longer lead time because of how busy their schedules are, that it might take them longer, student athletes longer to kind of chip away or even get the information to student athletes, right? Like their emails are probably not as regularly attended as someone who's sitting at their computer all day. And so maybe if you can make it a smaller thing that's further out in the future, you might be able to get some involvement that way. I don't know. Does that resonate with you guys? Does that sound like a kind of a recap of what we've talked about? Make it easy, make it small.
And then just finding the right person to reach out to.
Finding the right person. Yeah, certainly that. Lou, what else?
There's one other thing that I neglected to mention, in addition to going through the SAC and finding someone in sustainability as well as champions in the athletics department. The other area that I think needs mention is worth mentioning is sustainable business. So there are many schools, and we're working with NYU, which is Division III. Yes, we have several champions there, and we're working on a Greening the Violets, which is their team name. But finding someone who is a champion within sustainable business makes a lot of sense because they can help in finding local sponsors. Think about a local solar company, a local thrift store, a local plant-based restaurant. They won't have the budget to become a full-fledged sponsor of, say, Ohio State athletics. However, they could sponsor some kind of greening initiative that's led by athletes. And if you find someone from sustainable business to drive that,
well,
my work is done here.
That's a great point, Lou. Thank you so much for making that. I've thrown my email up on the last slide. If anyone, I think you might have it, but if you don't and have any questions, want to continue this conversation, like I said, I don't need to hop off immediately if anyone wants to stay on and continue talking. But specifically related to that business point Lou just made, the January webinar in the Collegiate series is going to be the business of collegiate sports sustainability. So we will have representation from a business office, a development office, a sustainability office that manages the Green Fund. She might be on this call, and a media rights holder, all talking through how does that money funnel. So I'm excited for that conversation and want to say thank you so much to our speakers today. Really appreciate the very valuable insights and experience that you shared with the group. Thank you, thank you, thank you times a million. I hope everyone enjoyed the conversation and